Welcome to OState Daily. Kasey Porter here. So glad that you decided to tune in. Joined by Scott McKinley, as I am each and every week. Scott, thank you so much for joining.
Absolutely. Let's quickly dissect what happened last week, and I think I speak for all OSU fans when I say we're ready to move on.
Absolutely. College football, it's kind of interesting. Chase mentions the 12-hour rule, but really in college football, you bitch and moan and you do all this until you have that Monday press conference. And then once you have the Monday press conference where Coach Gundy gets up and talks about the game, that really feels like the end of that game, and that's where you have to move on. So I thought Gundy did a really good job in his press conference. I thought he addressed the issues. I thought he talked about the offense. He didn't shy away from it. He kind of hinted at some of the things he felt like the offense needed to do. So I think his press conference was pretty much spot on. That moved you forward.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Gundy he is definitely somebody that's going to speak what he thinks, sometimes even to his detriment. But I think he nailed it on Monday. I mean, he basically echoed what I think all the fans saw as well. I mean, it's obviously our offense is just we have got to get better on offense.
We do, and I think sometimes you can read between the lines with Mike Gundy. And he was a little bit more subdued, which tells me that he's a little bit more in an analytical mode, like, what actually do we need to do? It just felt like to me, Mike Gundy is still in the I'm trying to analyze this and actually try to figure it out mode with his mannerisms. I may be reading too much into that, but I've been watching this dude operate for quite a while, and that's just kind of what I took away from his mannerisms.
Well, and that's kind of just the way that he approaches things. And overall, I totally agree with that approach because, I think sometimes as fans, when something goes wrong, we want the coach to holler and scream and throw something at the podium because that's how we feel we want to do. But at the end of the day, that really doesn't actually solve anything. The only way we're going to solve this is we've got to go look at tape and figure out where the deficiencies are at. What do we need to do to fix it? One thought that I did kind of have, though, is, we have a Doak Walker Award winner in the backfield. We have an offensive line that basically is pretty much the same offensive line that won him that Doak Walker Award. Okay, why can't we run the ball? It has to be schemes. It has to be coaching. It has to be those kind of things.
It has to be.
Yeah. So
I think you could look at last year and make that determination. The first 3 games in the zone scheme, nothing. You change scheme. And then all of a sudden you have a Doak Walker Award. I think you put that very bluntly, but I think you're exactly correct, Scott.
Yeah. And I think that's if there's some optimism that I have moving forward, we have got the talent down there to win every game that's left on our schedule. It's not,
and to run the ball.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's what is kind of just, so confusing. Speaking of confusing, another thing that I think is very unusual for OSU fans, and I'm going to throw last year in this as well, but one of the hallmarks of a Mike Gundy coach team is consistency. Yes. Whatever else, you knew pretty much what you were going to get on a Saturday. The last 2 years have been very inconsistent. We go out, we lose to South Alabama, then we beat OU. Yeah, I mean that's just something I've noticed in the last couple of years that we become incredibly inconsistent. And don't wish I knew what the answer was. I'm sure Mike Gundy's trying to figure it out, but that's.
You want to know what it is? You want the simple answer?
I like simple answers.
Alan Bowman.
Yes. Yeah.
I hate to put all of that on his shoulders because I think if you follow me or OState Daily, I'm an Alan Bowman fan. I am so thankful for what he did to Oklahoma State last year, getting us to the Big 12 championship game and beating OU. I am on his side. I want him to be our quarterback. Having said that, I can't avoid the fact he's been inconsistent, and as he's been inconsistent, even the program that Mike Gundy's put together that is built on consistency has been inconsistent.
Yeah. Well, it begins and ends with the quarterback, right? Yep. That if there's one critical position on the field in a football game, and it's always comes down to quarterback. And to give credit to Utah's backup quarterback, he played an okay game. Is he as good as their starter? No,
he's okay. But he still turned the ball over. He gave us he did everything he needed to do to let us win that game.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the other thing that I'm not going to lie, I was pretty salty on Sunday after this. Is if we would have even had an average output on offense on Saturday, we win that game. You know what I mean? I mean that's and I think that was the frustrating part is that we
just don't totally suck.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Do something productive. And we started to turn it on there late, but again, it's too late.
Yeah, I'm sure they had dropped. I didn't really analyze. I did not go back and look at the film. I didn't do my highlight video. So I'm sure they dropped into coverage and opened up some holes for us. I don't know that for a fact, but yeah, I totally agree with that. That's a great point on the consistency. I had never really thought about it. Then also I think too, Coach, that Ollie Gordon's a very emotional player. So I think sometimes his emotions kind of creates the ups and downs with this team too.
Yeah, and football can be very much I call it a snowball game, because if you get good momentum, that snowballs. If you get bad momentum, that snowballs. And sometimes, and I know people are going to criticize, Gundy and everything with the Bowman thing. I kind of want to hear your thoughts on that. But, okay, I could at least can see the point that, okay, sometimes you need to settle a guy down and you need a little bit of a reset. I don't know if we need it for an entire quarter, but
no, that was a mistake. I mean, I don't think anybody can defend. I think you can make the argument Rangel versus Flores. Hey, I think Zane Flores is better than Garrett Rangel. I've never seen Zane Flores play. I say that based on, I'll say this, I don't think he could be worse than Garrett Rangel, what he gave Oklahoma State at that point, because we know he's a great athlete, and we've heard some comments that Gundy has said about Zane Flores. If you put 2 and 2 together, even without seeing him, I think we would agree Zane Flores is probably at least a better talent than Garrett Rangel, but I think you can make the argument that wasn't the situation to see, right? Yeah. I think you wait till he has a little bit of runway to give him some time to make some mistakes that aren't going to beat you against a Utah-type team. So I think there's definitely both sides to whether it should have been Rangel or Zane Flores. I don't think there is any other argument to make other than he left Garrett Rangel in too long. I mean, one series, maximum of 2. I mean, when you're talking 4 or 5 series, that's almost an entire half.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those things where if he would have put in Rangel or Flores and we would have gotten some production out of it, okay, hey, we went from no production to we're producing. But like you said, after 1 or 2 series, this isn't working either. I mean, and that's and I hate to say this, but we talked earlier this year when we talked softball and those other things, we talk about sometimes the messages that you're sending to your team.
Right.
That really, basically to me, that was a panic move because we just flat couldn't get anything going.
Which is something very uncharacteristic of Mike Gundy.
Yeah. That Gundy has always been one that, okay, stay the course, stick to the plan, make adjustments where necessary. We'll be there late, in the game, and we'll have a chance to win the ball game. To me, that was very, if you want to say telling, to me, that was very telling because that's not something that typically Gundy would do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thought Coach Nardo did a very good job. I thought his blitz packages were fantastic, but that's enough about that crappy ass game. I'm tired of even leaving it in my brain. Right? Let's just go ahead and move on. We hit all the big points with that. I think we probably hashed and rehashed. So have OSU fans at this point. So Kansas State, you go. First of all, you gotta bring up that I've been to Manhattan several different times. That is it's not a huge stadium, but it's very quaint. It kind of has that AA baseball type feel to it. That type of home field advantage to it. It's loud. Those fans are into it. This is going to be an extremely difficult game on Saturday.
Yeah, this was one that we circled this game before the season even got started. The Big 12 really didn't do us a whole lot of favors by scheduling these 2 games back to back. But I've been to Manhattan as you have. It can be a very difficult environment. It does get loud there. KState fans are very good fans. They're a great fan base. If you ever go up to a tailgate, they're the folks that welcome you in, just like OSU fans will. But it's going to be a very tough game. KState is always well coached. They've always got athletes up there. And you would think with what has transpired with OSU that this would not be the time for us to go on the road in a hostile environment. In some ways, I actually think this may actually help us in a sense because
galvanize.
Well, my thinking is, because you're absolutely right that, Ollie Gordon plays very emotionally. Bowman can play emotionally. When you're on the road, you don't have the crowd to get you emotional from the get-go. You're more focused on the game plan, focused on the analytics, focused on the logistics of winning a football game. So that's what I hope we see on Saturday. But like I said, I think this is going to be a very, very difficult game for OSU to pull out. I really do. But we also don't know what kind of shape is K-State going to be in after that shellacking they took at BYU last week.
And just kind of a shellacking and a shocking. I mean, it was like everything was rocking along okay, and then wham. But I said this last week. I think it was on our show, Scott. Jake Retzlaff, he's a different quarterback than what Oklahoma State saw in Stillwater last year. He was a JUCO transfer. He was just getting his feet wet. There was a quarterback derby there at BYU last year. They decided to go with him because he can run the ball. He is a totally different player this year, and he is a difference maker. That BYU game on the road for OSU is going to be so hard to win because that is a good team. Kalani Sitake does a great job up there. But, Oklahoma State's considered one of the best home field environments in all college football. I would agree with that. You have the paddle people. You have really nice crowds, all the tailgating. K-State is in the same boat as OSU, a great home field environment. And every time you ask, like Mike Leach, I know when he answered the question, of course he mentions the paddle people. The fans are right up on you. But really the last thing usually coaches and players say is, well, typically speaking, the team on the other side of the sideline is pretty damn good. That's why it's so hard to go into their environment and play. That's K-State. This is a really good team, despite what happened to them at BYU.
Yeah, I think this is, well, Mike Gundy even said it before the season that pretty much everybody's going to beat up on each other in the Big 12 this year. So literally, I think this is a game where I could see OSU going in there winning. I could see us getting blown out. I could see us. I mean, who really knows what's going to happen this year? And a lot of that goes back to the inconsistency. But at the same time, that I'll be honest with you, I felt like the overall result was very inconsistent for K-State last week too. Yes. That's losing a game is one thing, but they just flat got. They basically what happened to them last week is what happened to OSU against UCF last year, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Those games were very, very similar, very similar to each other.
They were. And K-State does a lot of things that are kind of kryptonite-ish for OSU. One, the running quarterback. That's always been a tough deal because OSU likes to play that man coverage on the back end. And when you're playing man coverage and your receiver just runs down the field, you have to turn your back to the line of scrimmage and run with your receiver so you're not even seeing the quarterback scramble. Then OSU likes to blitz, which means if that happens and OSU's in a blitz, now you don't have one of your linebackers to cover the quarterback scramble. OSU is very aggressive with their rush. Sometimes they get out of their rush lanes, which gives the quarterback rush lanes to run on. We saw that even Saturday with the Wilson kid for Utah. So those are things, mistakes, or schematic issues that Oklahoma State has against an Avery Johnson type of quarterback. And then Oklahoma State is usually they have a lot of conflict players, meaning they have safeties that play both run and pass. What beats that? RPO football. K-State runs a lot of RPO football. And then on defense, they stop the run, they get after the quarterback, and then they play aggressive on the outside. So those are all things that really hurt Oklahoma State.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a difficult matchup for sure. And there's two ways you can look at that. You talk about OSU likes to blitz a lot, and we're very good at blitzing, but that doesn't work well with a running quarterback. So the question is, okay, do we go in?
It's risky.
It's anytime you call a blitz like that, there's a risk involved. It's almost kind of one of those things where do you go in and let's do what we do well. Or do we need to fully adjust to, okay, we need to keep a linebacker there almost kind of in the spy, if you will, to make sure that we don't let that quarterback get loose on us. To me, what I would expect is I think it'll be calculated risk. I think there will be a time where there's something that's a tell, hopefully that Nardo sees on tape or something like that whether it's formation that tells him which side the ball's going or, something like that, and we can call up a blitz at the right time through the right gap. That would be the hope. But my expectation, I don't think we're going to blitz as much on Saturday. There's still going to be some blitzes, though, just because that's who we are. But my hope is that when we blitz, we saw something that tells us, we needed to. Yeah.
So another concern of mine is K-State. They love the They love the pinning and pulling, and they're just kind of mauling you with their offensive line. With a good running back, they have flow reads to both sides of the line of scrimmage because their quarterback can run as well as the running back. This has been a defensive line that is very capable, but they have given up a lot of yards to teams that come right at you. That has to be a concern too, right?
Yeah. I'll be honest. I haven't had a chance to watch as much K-State film as I would like. Yeah. But the thing that I always know about them, they're always going to be well coached. They're always it's basically assignment football, if you will. And that's another thing that I also thought about is, okay, one, we would like to hope that we're going to get better offensive production on Saturday. That's I think it's going to be incredibly difficult to win if we don't. But here's another thought that I had is that if we go out there and basically we're doing 3 and out, we got to quit running, hurry up. All we're doing at that point is just putting our defense out there for 30 minutes, whatever. That was another, not to go back, but that's another critique that I had, that if that's what we're going to get, quit running the hurry up. Yeah. All you're doing is just wearing your defense out that much faster, No
doubt.
But we'll see. I would
prefer to eliminate the 3 and outs before the hurry up.
Yes. Yeah. How about we just not have the 3 and outs?
Yeah, there you go.
That would be
That's the solution right there.
Yeah, exactly. But no, and that's something I've always said, that, the hurry up, there are certain situations where it does give you an advantage, and there's reasons to do it, but at the same time, it comes down. I'd rather get a good play call in. I'd rather make sure we got the right matchup, make sure we're getting the ball to the right guy. Like hitting Presley on the edge. There's there's just a thought there. Yeah. There's a thought, but those kind of things. But like I said, I don't think that OSU needs to go away from everything that we do. Yeah, right. But we do need to have some. I'm hoping that there's some substantial changes on offense this week. I think I will say this. I think defensively, we have a good enough defense to go into Manhattan and win on Saturday. But we've got to get some kind of production out of the offense,
which is crazy to say with the offense that Oklahoma State has returning. The receivers, you have a Toke Walker Award winner, all these veteran-laid offensive linemen, you have great tight ends, an experienced quarterback. Crazy to make that statement about the offense, but hey, it's going to be an interesting game, a lot of fun in Manhattan on Saturday. Let's get into some of our grades for Oklahoma State, and then I think you can probably you can put in last Saturday and maybe the season overall, but let's kind of go at it that way. Let's get the elephant out of the room, right? Let's start with Kasey Dunn.
To be honest, I think I'm going to have to go with a D-. I can't at this point. I can't. We've had too many games, and yes, I know we could throw the Tulsa game in there. Yeah, we lit them up, but you know what? I think you could have taken any offensive coordinator in the country, put them in that game, and we still would have lit them up.
Yes.
I think there's, again, as you just mentioned, how do you have this many weapons and this poor production? We have got to be better on offense.
There has to be a variable to that is coaching. There has to be.
Yeah. Because
I don't mean that to throw shade on anybody. It has to be a fact, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, like I said, it's when we know these guys are proven commodities. Ollie Gordon hadn't forgot how to run the football. Our offensive line, who blocked for him last year, hasn't forgotten how to run the football and technique and all those kind of things. And I would hope that they improved since last year. But yeah, we still can't run the football. They're just we've got to be better on that side. And Mike Gundy even alluded to that. As you said in his press conference, that you could kind of read between the lines that he didn't like our plan. I mean, when he flat came out and said our offense was awful, that's another thing that Gundy, even after a loss, he'll say, okay, well, we got outcoached, we got outplayed, didn't like our schemes, that kind of thing. But I mean, he just flat told like it was. So,
yep. I'm going with a big fat F for this last Saturday. You can add 3 more letters to that and kind of think and kind of put together what my opinion of that performance on Saturday was for the Oklahoma State offense. I'll probably go with like a C- for the season overall, because I think they have performed I thought they were good against Arkansas down the stretch. They did what they needed to do to get them in the position to, if you go beat K-State, you still have inside track to the Big 12 championship. So overall in the season, I don't think it's been totally catastrophic yet, other than the fact you haven't been able to run the ball. So I think you're probably right somewhere in the D category. Let me go ahead and amend that a little bit. So let's move to the defensive side of the ball, Coach Nardo.
Coach Nardo, I think, and again, this may be some recency bias, and I'm giving him a wide berth here because of his defense performed very admirably this last Saturday.
Yes.
I'd say probably a B plus, just from the standpoint that, okay, if we give them an A because we win, well, we didn't quite play good enough to win, but a lot of that has to go on the offense. I'd probably say either a B plus or an A minus. I think Coach Nardo has done a very good job. Our defense is creating some turnovers. The only knock I'd say on our defense is we're still giving up some chunk yard plays in there, particularly on the ground. I'm going back to the Arkansas game a little bit on that, but overall, I like the direction of our defense. We're playing hard, we're hitting hard, we're creating some turnovers. I think I don't have a whole lot of complaints on the Cowboy defense.
Coach Gundy, overall game management.
Well, again, I'm going back to the Bowman pulling. I'd say probably game management. I'd probably say D plus, maybe a C minus, somewhere in that range. Which, I mean, that's not usually what I would say. Gundy's usually a really good game manager, and I think that's what's I would say. I don't want to use the term alarming, but I'm going to use the term alarming. Is
disappointing, I think, would be my word.
Yeah, it's just I think that it's disappointing because that's not what we're used to seeing out of Mike Gundy. Which I hate to. What concerns me is that could be telling for what's going on behind the scenes, and I hope I'm wrong on that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into some of the players. Quarterback, let's start there. It always starts offensively with the quarterback, Alan Bowman.
Very inconsistent. This last game was just an absolute disaster. I'm probably going to give him a D up to this point. Yeah. And to be honest with you, and he had a great game against Tulsa. He lit him up, those kind of things. We were good enough to win against Arkansas. He made that brilliant play, to Presley. That was a great throw. So it's not that Alan Bowman hasn't done some good things, but
right before he got the personal foul penalty.
Right. Yeah.
Unsportsmanlike, yeah.
I'm trying to stay positive as much as I can here. I'm doing the best I can here.
Understood.
But I think the thing I look going forward is we know that the talent is there with Bowman. We just got to get it to click. We've got to get going. So
totally agree. Ollie Gordon.
Ollie, it's hard for me to grade him too harshly because, again, hasn't had a whole lot of room to run. But at the same time, haven't gotten over 100 yards yet either. So I'd say just a C. Yeah. I think, okay, he's done the best he can with what he has to work with, but we also haven't seen any flash either.
Offensive line's a mixed bag. They gave up their first sack of the year on Saturday, so they've been great in that aspect. Who knows how much of the running game is offensive line versus scheme? So I think this is an interesting one, Scott, offensive line.
I think I'm probably going to go with a C plus on the O-line just because, as you said, they have pass blocked brilliantly. I mean, they've done a phenomenal job on pass blocking, but guys, we got to get something going on running game. We can't continue to have games where we don't even get 100 yards of rushing. So to me, I'd say I'd say that that kind of averages out. We've been great on pass blocking, been terrible on run blocking. So I'd say a good solid C on that one.
We're going to go with A with the receivers. I think they've done their job when they've had the right opportunities given to them.
Yeah, there's been a handful of drops, but you know what? That happens in every season to every receiver that's ever played this game. So yeah, I'd probably give them a B plus, A minus, somewhere in that range. I think the receivers have performed very well. And again, we have talent out there. These guys have got talent. We know they've got talent. We just gotta have the right schemes and execute.
Defensive line.
D-line, I'd say a good solid B. I think.
Oh, really? They've allowed over 200 yards again rushing Saturday.
They have, but at the same time, also there's some things that I've seen that they'll run some twists, they'll run some stunts, those kind of things. We got the big stop against Arkansas when we needed it.
Yes.
Of course, that was there was linebacker help on that as well. Again, it's. They were allowing yards, but for the most part, when it gets crunch time, when you really need the D line to step up inside those 20s, they've done a pretty decent job on that. Now, I would like for us to cut down the amount of yards that we're giving up per game, but at the same time, keep them out of the end zone. That's the goal.
I'm going to give them a C minus, and only because I think they're way better than what they're playing right now as far as stopping the run and then not forcing the Cowboys to have to blitz to get pressure on the quarterback. I think there's a better defensive line for Oklahoma State out there than what we have right now. So I think I'll give them a C minus for that perspective. Linebackers, I'm going A++++. They cover backs. Did you see Jeff Roberson cover the back out on the Trey Rucker interception? Yeah. That was a phenomenal play. Nick Martin, he just does everything. Kendall Daniels has been great in both pass coverage, run stopping. I'm giving the linebackers an A++.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, I can't say enough about our linebacker core this year. They have just absolutely performed brilliantly, and we're going to need them again this Saturday.
Yeah, huge game with them, with all the stuff they do with the running backs, and then the spy game on Avery Johnson and all that kind of stuff. Secondary, Trey Rucker had the interceptions. He's the leading tackler in the country in college football. He's simply phenomenal, but then you give up some big plays. You give up the big run to, of course, I don't think that was the secondary's fault whenever Wilson went on the run, because that's one of those man coverage situations. But secondary,
I'd give them a good solid B.
Yeah,
like I said, that's where I kind of think they're at. They've had some good production, getting the picks, doing those kind of things. They are helping some with run support, but we've also had a few breakdowns back there as well. But I'd say a good solid B.
All right, man. Those are our grades right there. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts for this week is obviously, hopefully we figure something out on offense. I would like to think that we will see something different, whatever that different is on Saturday. Yeah. I think it's going to be another tight ball game. My hope is if we're in it in the fourth quarter and we have a chance to win at the end of the game, I think that's all that we can ask for at this point. But like I said, this is a toughie. This is not going to be easy to walk in there and win. But I'll be watching, wearing my orange as I always do.
Absolutely. Scott, thanks for joining.
Sounds good. Thanks, Kasey.